for sure.
This
Yeah.
was let's start this. This was fun. I mean, I was unaware of this book. I was unaware of this story. So had you heard of the book before you had started it?
No, I haven't either. I was familiar, like when I heard about when I heard the name Walter Mosley, I was like, okay, that resonates. And I assumed he's a writer out of New York, but he's Los Angeles based.
Mm,
And yeah, and I was very impressed that Nadia took on a book of such complexity for her directorial debut feature.
yeah.
But I haven't heard about it in the past either, no.
Was there I have not read the book, but was there a big difference between the book and the script?
Yes, there was some differences. As the book was very descriptive of space and orientation and certain sensual and tactile elements.
Mm,
But Nadia always phrased it in a way, and I agree with her that Charles was much more sexualized and also a much more maybe unlikable person.
right.
And it was really important to Nadia as she adapted the script to make Charles a little bit more of a balanced person. So I
Mm,
think the differences were there, like his certain, there's just certain elements and character choices in the book that made him a very unlikable
right.
person, or more, yeah, in a way.
Yeah, I could see that. I don't know if I really liked him. I don't know what I felt like I don't know what you're going for here, man. Like I was like, you seem so unhappy, but then you start to learn his background and everything, which then in this house, which you built, right? You built the whole,
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. You guys just built a house in the middle of like the woods. Where'd you shoot this?
We shot it, and well, so when I signed on to the film, the plan was to shoot it in Savannah.
Hmm.
And then for budgetary reasons and how the funding came together, it ended up going to Wales in the UK.
I'm Welsh. No
Yes. Oh,
way.
you are? How
I
lovely. Where
am.
from?
Somewhere. Oh, I don't know. I mean, I've tried to trace it back, but I'm told I'm Welsh.
Oh, how wonderful. Yeah, I love being there.
How was that and dealing and just up and moving to like Wales and with a crew? Like, did you get to take anybody with you? How'd you do that?
Yes, so what happened was when we decided to shoot it around Cardiff, Wales, the producers flew me over to go on a scout to see is this even possible? Because the story is set in Sag Harbor,
Yeah.
Long Island, and it's a very distinct community, and we wanted to see if we can find any exterior world building elements in the exteriors of Cardiff and surroundings that we could weave into the couple of days of actual exterior filming in Sag Harbor.
Hmm.
And yeah, I flew over there for a couple of days of scouting, and we found a couple of tiny places that we felt like could work, like the bank that Charles
Oh.
is going in and out of, exterior, interior, and we found the bar, a dingy bar. We did a lot of work to it.
Hmm.
We were able to match a stretch of ocean or sea
Hmm.
um, at a beach that felt like it had a similar feeling as Sag Harbor. And sorry, I had a cold last week. I'm trying not to
No, no,
make these
you're good.
noises. And then we also found the little store that Diop's character
Oh yeah.
owns. And that actually ended up being an exterior interior perfect find. An old couple lived there. The
Hmm.
wallpaper was already in place, and we emptied out their living room and their tea room and created this little quilt store.
Yeah, I
And
really like that set. I don't have a photo of that, but I really like that. And it's tight. Like it's
Mhm.
realistic. Like it's nice. It's like this is her little world. This is her little shop. Like it's a quaint little set there. I did enjoy that one.
Yeah, I really loved how that came together, and it was tiny. I think it was like the rooms, those two rooms were each maybe 12 by 12 feet or 12 by
Oh
14
yeah.
feet. So it
Yeah.
was tiny. And Ula and Nadia, our DP and director, they really just chose beautiful angles and they really made it work. I was a little concerned, but I love authentically small sets. And when we're building sets, I always try and keep them
Yeah.
compact and not build them for camera crews and dollies and,
Yeah.
not build them for the crew. Yeah, and then they also flew me to Sag Harbor to scout Sag Harbor, and that was really the special part because I got to meet some of the community there, and I met one couple in particular that just took me in. I was there for a weekend. I ended up being by myself for some time, and they took me in and drove me through Sag Harbor and
Oh,
told me all the stories and really gave me a deep and emotional introduction to the community and their history. And
oh,
then
that's
those two
awesome.
scouts, yeah, that was so wonderful. And those two scouts combined, from my perspective, I felt like, yes, we can do this in Wales. And
Mm.
then the last challenge was that the way the schedule fell into place because we lost our lead actor and it took a minute to find Corey, that our shooting schedule shifted from summer, where the story took place, to filming it in winter in Wales. And it rains all the time,
Oh,
and there's just a water cloud in the air. Like the drops are so tiny that an umbrella will not help you.
uh,
And there was a lot of back and forth. How do we keep it summer? And eventually Nadia said, you know what, let's tweak the seasons a little bit and be more liberal with that.
yeah.
And then we found this property that you see here, and it was a swamp, a private
Oh
property, a
my God.
swamp. And the day we were supposed to start building this facade, this property, our rigging grips, who are an amazing, the Welsh rigging grips are like they're just their own breed of people. They were so wonderful.
Oh,
They
that's
were
amazing.
knee deep in water, so we had to bring in 20 tons of gravel to give us a proper foundation to then actually build
Oh my
this house
God.
consistently flooded.
That's
Yeah, and this is just the exterior. We built the interior and the basement, all of that on stage at Dragon Studios.
but this so it's basically it's swampy, it's flooding. Like I don't even I mean, I see there's lifts there and all that jazz, like people up on lifts, your second floor doing this whole house. Do you think to yourself like, man, should have just built this all inside or like you know what I mean? Like it's such a bringing in gravel and I mean I understand there's a lot of walking around the property. Obviously you could not have built it inside, but um it's a fantastic build for that reason if you had to build it on top of a swamp. I mean that's crazy.
Yeah. No, and it was amazing because the nature there really matched Sag Harbor back in the 90s. There were no paved or very few paved roads in this particular neighborhood. And it was important to Nadia to establish a little bit of that neighborhood and how it really looked like in Sag Harbor.
Hmm.
And we needed that relationship to our neighbor or
Yeah,
to Charles's neighbor.
that's what I was going
And
to
there
ask.
was this tiny little shed just across the way from the camera angle. Yeah, that was there from a previous film. They shoot a lot of like fairy tale type,
Hmm.
Harry Potter type movies there. So there was like this cabin in the woods. And we were able to add a porch and paint it pink and add a bunch of windows and then we landscaped everything. We laid a road and then we brought in lanterns and electricity and then lastly landscaping to establish a section of this Sag Harbor neighborhood.
Oh
And
wow.
it worked out really nicely. We had
Yeah.
nighttime there, a bunch of daytime scenes, and we were able to pull up cars and see the boxes being unloaded, and all of
Yeah.
our exteriors were super controlled. It worked out really nice.
It
Yeah.
did. I really like the relationships to the other house because to me it's very old school East Coast, like no fences kind of deal. And
Hmm.
like, yeah, I'm coming over and pruning your roses, things like that, like those type of neighborly things that I feel like I grew up with. But it's like,
Yeah, you're so right. And that was what we were aiming for. Yeah.
what the inspiration though for your like craftsman the craftsman, the style and everything, was that written or was that your elements that you designed in there?
So that was, we took a little liberty there. From the very beginning, when Nadia and I started talking about the script, we had a good, gracious 3 months where we, as in a consulting phase, it was just her and we got to meet a few times a week and talk about the emotional beats of her script and work through it line by line. And she loved the idea of tying Charles's heritage and family to arts and crafts.
Arts and crafts, yeah.
And it didn't, as we took some liberty there because the arts and crafts movement is younger than the age of this house to fit 8 generations or 5 generations of family there. And so, but she really liked the idea of symbolism that tied us to nature and to animals, and she loved the very angular architecture. And we just said, you know what, let's take those elements from craftsman style homes that are more West Coast and get buy us that liberty of architecture to make this house the center of the community. And we grounded all of our choices, I think, mainly in the fact that we developed a backstory for the family of Charles's parents and grandparents being an anchor in the community and being, socially involved with everybody. And this house was a welcoming anchor in the heart of the community where they hosted events and
Right.
where women met and so forth. And that's how that came together. And then the stained glass windows were a result of that. That was never scripted. We hadn't discussed it. But I felt like the entrance is such a threshold.
Yeah.
Um, I really wanted something that is noticeable for our exteriors and brings us back to stage. And then we started, and it works for arts and crafts and craftsman style. And we started playing with the patterns and especially the vertical axis in here, which ties to the entire emotional storyline, I think. And yeah, I had no idea how, I didn't think about the fact that Disney loves stained glass windows. The
Mhm.
producers told me that once they were done with the final cut, and those windows became a real, show piece of the trailer and of the entire
Yeah,
movie.
I mean
Yep.
it's in the art of the trailer and everything like that. So
Yeah,
that's always a
yeah,
compliment. That's always
yeah. That was really nice. I was so excited about it, and I had to fight hard for it. The windows that was when you go to a satellite location, a location you haven't worked and you need to gain the trust of your crew.
yeah.
And when you have a sense of urgency and you something is really, really, really important to you,
Yeah.
it took a minute of convincing that those windows needed to be real glass and those, we can't
Yeah.
print on plexiglass or anything like that because of the way the light lives through those windows. So
Yeah,
that was
and
a
he's
big
at that
one.
door a lot. I mean, it's very prominent in the even in the script,
Yeah,
in the scenes and everything. And it's,
yeah,
letting someone into your home, letting someone into your basement. But I mean, this
yeah.
it's very prominent in throughout the film. So it's production value was used, so it was worth it.
Definitely. Yeah, made me very happy. Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
and then the house, the house is a little bigger than most houses in Sag Harbor, but that was also intentional. First of all, I think Nadia and Ulla really wanted to have the possibility to move through
mhm.
and to work with a voluminous space, and it allowed us to give us a lot of depth
Yeah.
throughout angles and shadows. And I think it actually works. Being here in Buffalo, New York, right now, my Airbnb is a house like this, and it has
Mhm.
3 stories, and I live in the attic, and the attic has 2,000 square feet,
Yeah.
which is insane.
Yeah.
So I was okay with the size of it after all. I
Yeah.
had some reservations in the beginning, but
No,
yeah.
it doesn't throw me as like at all the scale or anything, but I think too, as you said before, you don't want to make things too big because then there's a dance floor in the middle of the room and you're like, well, yeah, because camera has to go there, but realistically, that wouldn't be there. So it's always better to not scale too much for our
Yeah,
Hammer world, you know.
yeah, for sure.
There's amazing details too in on the interior of the home. Do you want to talk about any of that influence and more of like, well, I mean, it's more of the arts and crafts and everything, but it's still very prominent throughout the whole house. I mean, the movie is about this house and what goes on in this house. So
Hmm.
that's you've built this character up through the
Hmm.
house.
Yeah, from an aesthetic standpoint, so I think there were a couple of approaches, and one of the main themes that motivated a lot of our choices in here was that duality of Charles being stuck or stranded in a space that's so filled with history and legacy and love and community.
Yeah.
And he is a lonely, forgotten person in that space, not capable of carrying that legacy forward. And it was really important to us to tie certain things to the history of Sag Harbor. There's a big whaling theme in here. Moby-Dick is very tied to Sag Harbor.
Mm.
And that in itself is a wonderful metaphor. And then we wanted to show how over the course of many generations there was probably as family members came to live in the house and as marriages happened and people brought things together, there's items that are over the course of several decades, if not, a century and a half. And Hannah Nicholson was my decorator in the UK, and what an amazing woman she is, wise beyond her years, and just we had such a beautiful collaboration. And she put me in her Subaru and said, "Let's drive to higher houses, prop houses," and we had to. There's very little in Cardiff, so we drove across all of the UK to these wonderful prop houses,
Oh,
and hand pulled everything, just the two of us in a way. And that was an experience in itself. We would live in hotels and have steak at night and then start at 6 in the morning and spend our entire day
that's heaven.
at prop. It was really great because I barely ever get that opportunity.
Yeah.
Sean, my art director, was able to herald, the building and everything, and I felt so safe I could step away and do that with her. And we did an entire day just for window dressing. And then
Oh.
an entire day just for certain rooms and just learning that system. It was a different system than the US system that I'm used to.
Mm.
That was wonderful too. And she ended up introducing me to a lovely gentleman in a city called Boston in the UK who took it upon himself to buy up all wallpaper stores that are closing down in the UK. And he has a prop house as well, but he has an entire warehouse filled with wallpaper from the 20s and 30s
Oh,
and 40s.
wow.
And he has books from 1880 with these absolutely beautiful pieces of wallpaper with the pigment
Oh,
and
wow.
everything about it is just it's unlike anything I've ever seen. And we had budget restrictions, so and we also had made a choice very early to not use too much wallpaper. But the
Mm.
little details you see in the corners
Yeah.
here in this room were, for example, these arts and crafts, floral and nature-inspired little details that we ended up buying to place in several places around the house and on the ceiling. And that was a little way of honoring something, that I found a really big appreciation for all these wallpapers.
Oh my
Just
God,
one.
that's a fantastic source.
Yeah, it was great. It was really wonderful. And then the cute thing is, and I wasn't aware of that, but there were like over the smallest questions like plaid bedding, sheets.
Mm.
My my English or my Welsh crew would ask, do you guys have that in the United States? There were these questions like what's normal and what's not normal. What do we have? What do we share and what's different?
Right.
And just having that
Fun.
curiosity throughout for the most mundane things,
Right.
um, to dial in the time period and the cultural, uh, uh, you know, um, the sensitive cultural context of it all. Yeah, it was a great journey, and I
I know
really enjoyed.
it's set in, I think, 1994,
Yeah, I think 1994, 93. Yeah.
which to me, I was like, oh, I really like all this music. I was like, oh, it's because it's the 90s. It's like,
Yes.
yeah, I remember all this 90s hip hop. It's awesome. Um,
Yeah.
did you, when he goes to that party and everything, and the house, is that a location in Wales, or did you shoot that here, or Sag Harbor, or?
And that was a location in Wales, and it's actually two locations. The exterior was a different one from the interior.
Mm,
Hold on. Yeah, they were neighboring houses though.
mm,
And that was one of the few homes that we saw who had somewhat of a mid-century split level
mm.
character, and I felt like it really worked for his friend's house. And then the interior of one of these homes, it was empty. It sat empty. It wasn't rented. Had a lot of original details, the wallpapers and the flooring, and
Nice.
it was a really great shell for the party. It was very small space again, but I think we dressed it and used it okay. There was a lot more dressing to it than ended up in the final edit.
Well, there's a lot of
Uh,
people in the room. There's a lot.
there
There's
was
a lot of
so
bodies.
many people. Yeah.
It's
Yeah, the kind of that
house
entire
party.
exactly. And that entire location was kind of built to juxtapose Charles's loneliness and forgottenness with someone who actually integrated themselves successfully in society and is moving on with having a committed relationship, having
Yeah.
children and so forth. So that we wanted to juxtapose that. Yeah, and there were a lot of people there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Too many, too many
sure.
bodies in our sets. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um, oh, there's another. The stained glass windows are really fantastic. I don't have any photos of the basement. The ones that I found were so dark. And I was like,
Okay.
that's not. But what was your concept? I mean, it's all about this basement. It's all about
Mhm.
this stranger coming into his life and saying, I want to rent out your basement. And then their relationship and why he wants it and how this all evolves is the real is a part of the story, and then his main story for him. But what was your concept of that basement? Because it's when he comes down at first, he's got a bunch of shit in there. He's got a bunch of junk, which he should. Everybody has stuff. And then you sort of clear it out for this man who's going to live in there. What was that concept? And was there a lot of discussion about camera moves around because he builds himself a cage? That's what I wanted to ask you.
Yeah, so we wanted to, and that's a story part. That there's not a lot of basements to begin with in Sag Harbor. So the story part was this is one of the few houses that had a basement. And then there's a little bit of a myth that the Underground Railroad also
Mm,
was tied to Sag Harbor, which we dabbled with for a minute. Was this maybe also a space that in the past helped freed slaves who came through to give them shelter? But we didn't really build on it, but there was some inspiration we drew on it on, what would the access point be to that basement? Is it a door? Is it more of a trap door of some sort? And we knew that the basement should be authentically low and authentically small. And every time there is a basement in any of our movies or in our projects, it always ends up becoming a build for so many reasons.
yeah,
And the biggest thing that I think that mattered to us is how can we spend 3 weeks of filming down there or 2 weeks of filming,
yeah,
many page counts. The entire second act is
yeah.
filled with scenes down there. And how do we keep it authentically compact while giving camera the possibility to move and to stay interesting and compelling and kind of shift with the emotional arc that happens down there. So I think the basement eventually was made bigger because there was this idea of having a round dolly track around the cage. And by the pure diameter of the cage itself, that track needed some space. And since we wanted to have a hard ceiling, uh, wild walls. There was never a desire to actually wild any large
Mhm.
walls. We had access point hinged doors that were hidden in the rock, but more for crew access. And from a thematic point of view and emotional point of view, what I really enjoyed about the space above and the space below was the first of all the vertical axis of ascending and descending and
Yeah,
how we shift into two completely different spaces of um, communication and of life. There's the world above this house that holds a lot of history and that's not in use anymore like it should be, and valuable things are discarded, and he's lonely and forgotten. And
right.
then downstairs, you, you take all of this out, and the basement has those acts that you described, that it's filled with forgotten family history, and then gets cleared out and becomes a space of conflict.
Yeah,
And within that conflict, there's this deep standoff that I think is the core of the book itself, that the master-slave role gets reversed and played on. And how does that change power dynamic, and how does that what does that do within yourself? And at times I felt like there's almost a surrealist element that they're two sides of the same entity, and that it's
duality.
almost a monologue. And I felt that was really powerful as this second act to the basement. And then Charles repurposes it as a place that is stark, but that stillness has so much power. And that stillness is actually liberating him and helps him grow. And he paints it all white. And I
Yeah.
really enjoyed that visual arc of the basement. Um, I think scenicking it and building it and shaping, like doing rock and imitating nature is always really difficult. So I wish we had had a little bit more time with it, but I like how it ended up reading.
No,
Uh,
it's very because I had a house in Philly and the basement had those like stone walls on
yeah,
some of the walls were still stone, which kind of freaked me out, but it was
yeah,
like it was like okay. Because I just think like, oh, there's bugs in here. But it's
yeah,
like it's
funny.
beautiful. But I mean that scenery down there to me was like, oh, this is you guys shot in a real basement. Like it was like
Yeah,
was
that's
there
good. That makes me happy if that feels this way. We
oh
didn't want
yeah.
to make it spooky. That's the thing. Like
No,
there are
I don't think
horror
it was spooky.
elements.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it didn't turn like horror. Like it didn't.
good.
Me watching it didn't turn like oh like there's a. I didn't feel like there was a presence in the basement or anything. There was
Yeah, good.
yeah. Was there trial and error or like conversation about the spacing of the bars? Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah. Because that to
And
me would be a
yes,
conversation.
we did. We build first. We built just a a cage out of wood, just in terms of shape and size. And we came down to a point that a 9 by 9 is good. Then
Mm,
there was a lot of color conversation. Do we powder coat it? Do we leave it metal? What's the backstory? How did Aniston Bennett, our Willem Dafoe character, choose this cage? Is he wealthy? Clearly he is. Who fabricated it? What intent did he have in the design of it? There was a lot of that. And then I recall that Nadia and Ulla felt like, oh, if the bars are too restricted, too close together, it's going to be interfering too much with
yeah,
the pacing. But you also, like, wherever you can fit your head through, you can fit the rest of your body through. And so they lean towards a wider distance first. And as we welded the first part of the cage one side. Sean and I went there one morning and I said, okay, let me try and step through it. And it was just able to step through the bars.
Yeah.
And we caught it early and we made the decision to actually make them tighter. And I like that. I like it
Yeah.
visual because you can really play with the dynamic of who is the caged person, who
Yeah.
is trapped, who is imprisoned. And I like how we broke that threshold over and over again, depending on the power dynamic of the story.
Was there discussion too about what he has in his cell? Were there specific things in dressing and designing that of like, we'll give him a desk, we'll give him a bed, we'll give him this, but like personal things that you guys dressed in for him?
Yes, there was a lot of discussion about that. And with the story, the book mentions a bunch of things that he
Right.
brings. He brings books, and obviously there's this toilet. There was this toilet discussion. Like, how do we have that toilet in there, and how do we figure out this, all the sewage stuff and everything. And we ended up with a marriage between a prison toilet and a camp toilet, and we designed it and made it a septic tank of some sort. And we wanted to ground it in logic.
Yeah.
And same with the bedding. We designed a bedding that could be folded up to a seat, almost like tatami mats, and then could be laid out and could be assembled in different versions.
Hmm.
But that would also make sense in a sense. There was the overall guide was form is function. Form is function, there's nothing comforting about the environment.
Right.
And the same with the table and the chair and the lamp. And William had a lot of input on that. When he came, we gave him options of what would make sense for him. And if we wanted to powder coat the furniture the same way as we did the cage, or if we left them in their natural texture. And so we came together by welding him a table that we left the metal, like the metal sheeting that we got. But then we juxtaposed it with a chair he really liked, which was a wood chair, if I
Mm.
recall. Maybe it was the opposite. Now but that was the idea behind it.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was a really fun design. Just a design, everything from the beginning to the end. It was a good process that we really enjoyed.
It's really psychological for both characters and
Hmm.
digging into their history or their backstory, and it's very juicy to get into those characters, I would think. It's really-
Yes, and I enjoyed it a lot. There was so much to draw from, and I think what we do in the art department is that we extract what's inside those characters and we're trying to create a mirror of that in the environment, or we juxtapose environment depending on the needs of the story. But it's really lovely if you're able to dive very deep and come from a place of backstory where everything is justified, even if it's not on the page per se, but that the logic and the world building works for us as the filmmaking team. I think that helps with authenticity and to stick with certain choices that make sense within that world.
Yeah.
I enjoy that. Yeah.
I think too you had such a this upstairs downstairs vibe of like the history of the house and the upstairs and then this darkness downstairs.
Mhm.
Did you create did your color palette really dominate that upstairs and then distract in the downstairs? Like did you try to do opposites or did you want to tie them together?
Do you mean the second and the first floor, or the basement
The
and the
base
up?
the basement and the house, let's say.
Yeah, I think for the house, besides obviously the contrast of the wood stain architectural elements that gave us a lot of frames and depth and silhouettes and allowed us to kind of see parts of rooms, we chose to stick with with a light pastel palette, and that came really in conversation with Nadia. Nadia had a lot of positive opinions about which colors we chose. And there was a dialogue that I don't experience with all directors
Mm.
that I really enjoyed with her. And so we ended up with hues of pastel pinks and peaches and yellows and greens, and then kind of grounded it with certain modest renovations that were made throughout, like the kitchen is an update, and there was a kitchen window added. And we carried that upstairs into the bedrooms. We barely see the parents' bedroom, which I'm a little sad about because that was one of my favorite sets.
Did you have like a pink floral wallpaper in the kitchen? Was that it? Like
Uh,
rosebud? Was that
that was in the bathroom.
in
In
the
the bathroom,
bathroom?
we went very pink, and I really enjoyed that bathroom. That might have
Yeah.
been one of my favorite rooms. And I'm glad Nadia ran with it because that was the few places. I think we only had wallpaper, like uh, traditional wallpaper in the kitchen and in the bathroom. And then we used a lot of anaglypta that we painted and aged throughout the rest of the house to give more texture to the walls. So yeah, so that was intentional to based on the lookbook that I did in my interview and what we built on. She liked the idea of warmth and lived-inness, and within that lived-inness, also a forgottenness. And then
Hmm.
the basement obviously became much starker with very dark textures um and rawness, the raw stone walls and the haphazardly painted stairwell and
Yeah.
um the certain wall elements. Yeah, that was definitely intentional to just create a space that you could question, is this actually happening in reality? I wondered at times, like there's a very surreal element about the basement
Oh, that's
and
true.
that conflict. Yeah,
Oh, I didn't think of that. Well, he is digging a grave. He is out there in the graveyard, which was
that
fun.
is true.
I'm sometimes fascinated by old gravestones and the wear and tear of old gravestones. I really liked that little graveyard in the backyard. I thought that was, I mean, that's very old. That's very New England. I feel like you bury
Yes.
not just your dogs, but your family in the backyard. It's crazy. But
Yeah, I was very surprised. And then I went to Sag Harbor and I saw them. They still have, some, they're a little bigger than what we did, but yes.
yeah.
Also, that grave, we had to move several times because of the flooding in the
Ah,
swamp.
oh my God.
But we finally found a place where the graveyard could exist throughout the rain, which was
Ah,
lovely.
it's never easy, is it? It's never like, oh yeah, we're just
Yeah.
gonna build here. It's gonna be great.
Yeah.
It's a swamp. It's raining. That's crazy. That's a bummer. But it looked great. I mean, I thought you were in Sag Harbor the whole time, so I was, or Atlanta. I was like, are they in Atlanta? Are they?
Yeah.
Where do they go? Because I didn't look it up. But
I
that's
proposed to Atlanta because I felt like we could probably have rented a house there and really augmented it to whatever we needed it to be. Atlanta, yeah, would have been a great filming location. It poses a lot of, there's a lot of variety, and I think we could have found a neighborhood like this in Atlanta somewhere for sure.
some old, yeah. They got, I mean, there's so much great architecture on the outskirts and everything. So.
Yes.
Well, fantastic job. It's
Thank
really,
you.
it's really now actually hearing what you had to go through there, schedule wise and swamps. A great job. It's very interesting film. It's very psychological. Like a lot of times I watch things and I'm working like multitasking or mom or whatever. And this, I was like, what did he say? I was like, I gotta rewind that scene. I don't know. Because I was like,
Yeah.
you can't really miss anything in this, I'd have to
No,
say.
you can't. It's definitely a film, I think, for acquired taste in many ways. And I really salute Nadia for taking on such complex themes and explore the
Yeah,
messiness. It's and I to me it worked with Charles that there is a lot going on in his life, and he's a deeply depressed person, and
yeah,
depression can be off-putting. And I think it makes sense to not necessarily like a person. I wonder how much training we get in our society, especially nowadays, being empathetic with people that struggle in certain ways or express their struggles that
yeah,
might be something where we can show immediate compassion because of their defensiveness or their aggression or whatever it is. And I felt like a state of mind like this is messy.
Hmm.
It's not singular. And to me, Nadia visualized that and emotionally put it on on the screen, how messy it can be. And it that doesn't make it a formulaic story. That makes it something different, a slice of life maybe, or a character study.
Yeah.
And yeah, you got to be ready for it for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's not the most likable character, but you're trying to understand where he's coming from through the whole film,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And then the other element of a man wanting to rent your basement is so weird. So it's
So bizarre. I know.
weird. Um, but too, you had, I mean, I was, did you build the back of the house? Now that I'm thinking about it, because he goes, doesn't he go, they're sitting around that house the whole time. Oh, you did. It's over
Yeah,
here.
we built the set. That's the entrance of
That's the
the
entrance to the basement.
basement.
I
And
see.
then when we look back from the, we actually have blue screen on the back. And when we look back from the graveyard to the house in a couple of shots, that was post-production. We
Mm,
ended up building two and a half sides, just the corners
well,
and the roof we designed in a way that actually from these lower angles is not you don't need more than that. We were wondering if we had to build up the roof more with VFX, but our set designer Balaj, who I also did Hellraiser with, is brilliant and and a proper architect who also is a nerd for the American train system and American architecture, and he had some really wonderful solutions about the roof. Yeah, I wonder if that was extended here to go back. That might have been extended.
go back.
Render that we
I can't
did. Yeah.
tell. No, it looks great. Fantastic. Well, so nice to catch up with
Um,
you again. I'm so
Thank you
glad. So
too.
glad to
Yes,
have
good to see
caught you on a good on a project and being able to talk about it. I appreciate it. So thank you.
Thank you as well. Wonderful.